So, over the last few days, the culture war and the epistemic fault lines that have been tearing this country and the world apart for years now have undergone a seismic shift. I've really felt it in my own social media channels over the last few days, messages from people about how brainwashed I am and that I need to break away from the system. And I think epistemology is tricky business. And when we live in such a highly mediated world now, with social media and legacy media competing with one another for our attention with a variety of different narratives, it can be really difficult to get to the bottom of what's going on, especially because all of it's being filtered through these screens. And with what Trump incited and with the response from the big tech companies, there's just no way to know much of anything for certain. Now, certainty, I think, is something we can say for certain is unwarranted. Epistemologically speaking, whether we're doing science or engaging in any other kind of research or knowledge production, certainty, I think, is something we should be very suspicious of. If we're doing logic and mathematics, maybe certainty has a place there, but even in purely deductive sciences, there's fuzziness, there's ambiguity. So I just want to make a quick plea as we apparently are spiraling towards civil war in the United States. I want to make a plea that we shift out of this epistemic mode of engaging and into a heart-centered mode of engaging, meeting each other as human beings with compassion, trying to understand one another, understand our motivations, understand what has brought us to the perhaps emotional state of mind that we may be in right now, so that we can come to reconnect as human beings. And that's not to say that there aren't consequences that I believe should be brought upon those who broke into the Capitol building in an attempt to kidnap or kill elected representatives and undermine our constitutional democracy. And we have laws that are in place to deal with acts of sedition. But I do have compassion for these people, and it's millions of people who have been left out, who have been ignored and ridiculed by wealthy elites. And Donald Trump and this whole QAnon movement is a symptom of an economic and cultural decline that has been going on for decades. And so I have compassion for the people who are angry. I understand why they're angry. I do not agree with the degree of certainty that they have, that they know who the bad guys are and that they know what the solution to our country's problems are. I certainly don't think that Josh Hawley and his Christo-fascist view of how society should be run, I certainly don't agree with him, but I also think that there's probably a lot of trauma in the background for him and others who hold views like his. And unless we can meet each other in a heart-centered way, if we continue to battle it out over truth and facts, we're never going to get to the bottom of what's really going on. We're frail, fragile, confused human beings, and if we can meet each other on that level, maybe we can reestablish the conditions that make democracy, constitutional democracy, which is not the same as mob rule, possible. Otherwise, we're spiraling into war. And maybe we're already in the midst of a civil war now at this point. I mean, I'm seeing the FBI is sending out warnings about what's happening on the 17th, where all the Capitol buildings are supposed to be invaded in all 50 states, including in the U.S. Capitol. So we're just getting started here, and I don't know. I'm getting messages from some of my former followers, I guess, that have alarmed me, because I'm seeing what is happening in the wider culture in my own, sort of social media presence, and it just compelled me to say what I've said. So right now, as someone that does acknowledge wider encompassing spiritual realities that give context to my understanding of embodied life as a finite human being, I think that, I'm weighing the difference between, say, the spiritual lesson that Krishna offered to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, with a more heart-centered sort of pacifist plea for compassion and understanding. Indeed, compassion and understanding are not necessarily, if you understand Krishna's message to Arjuna, in conflict with sometimes needing to go to war. And so, yeah, for what it's worth, I think my main point here is avoid certainty in your own beliefs and be suspicious of those who are certain of their beliefs. And instead of certitude and this epistemologically assertive mode of being in the world, let's try to be more cardio-centric. Cardiology rather than epistemology, right? Heart-centered. It's a heart-centered kind of knowing that I think will help us through this in the least violent way possible. Yeah. For those of you who have been watching my videos for a while and or reading my stuff, I invite you into an inquiry with me over how we move forward here. I really don't know. I mean, I've done a few podcasts the last couple of days with Jeremy Johnson and others that, I express some strong opinions at the level of politics, but I think there's also a lot of spiritual work that needs to be done here. We can't just dismiss that. The spirituality that's driving a lot of these QAnon people, it may be misguided and confused and have placed certainty in certain ideas that are not true, but there's underlying it is a search for meaning and a sense of deep and profound loneliness and power